And
Thank you.
welcome for another glorious 3-year term. Thank you for doing that.
No problem.
But I think the first agenda item is to reorganize, and for that, for us, that means electing a chair. So do we have a nomination for a chair?
I will nominate Dan if he wants to continue.
Do we have a second?
I second. I second.
Okay, any other nominations? Seeing none, we can vote on that. All in favor of Dan?
Aye.
Say aye. Thank you. I'll abstain on that one, and I'm
And
happy
let me
to-
just say, before we go on, I am recording this and it does get put up online, the recording. And Liam is here taking minutes.
Okay,
you.
thanks, Liam. And speaking of Liam's minutes, that's the next agenda item. Did everyone have a chance to read Liam's minutes from the last meeting? And they look very good to me, improving all the time. Do we have a motion to approve those?
I make a motion that we approve the minutes from the last meeting.
I'll second that. And all those in favor of approving those minutes, say aye.
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 Okay, those are approved unanimously. And then the next item here is Ray DiDonato regarding the culvert on Locks Village Road. So Ray, you have the floor.
Hi, thanks so much for giving me some time tonight. At a previous meeting, we discussed 318 Locks Village Road, which is a property that I own along with Lori DiDonato. And the issue is that because the culvert on that side of the road extends over the right of way, and some of the appurtenances related to it, and I'll explain that in a minute. It makes that property, 318 Locks Village Road, legally a dam owner as well, and it's really just because that culvert goes over the right of way. And we sort of talked previously about, well, whether the select board would be open to us donating that narrow strip of land. We had obviously still own the dam on the other side, the spillway, like a major part of it, but just on that side, because the primary reason that we're considered a dam owner is because of that town stuff that's going over the right of way. So I did have a survey done, and I was hoping I could just put that up. Actually, could the host enable me to share?
That's fine with me if the host wants to do that. If the
Yeah.
host can do it.
Yeah, I did that. And I'll just also say, I'm recusing myself from any select board discussion on this.
Okay.
So this is, do you see the survey? Are you seeing
Yep.
that clearly?
Yep.
So this is the survey, and where my arrow is, that is the right of way along the roadway. However, the culvert wings extend over that right of way on both sides. And additionally, there's a drainage swale that comes in here that's all a bunch of riprap stone. And then there's riprap right, basically almost to the edge of this second line that I'm showing. You see my arrow moving? Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I was just proposing is that we, in essence, just survey off this very narrow strip and donate that over to the town. I mean, it ensures the town has access to all its stuff there. It also does us a pretty good, it helps me in terms of the fact that, it's primarily that slope there and those appurtenances that are causing us to have that dam ownership status on that parcel. And the way to do this is that there's a mechanism for doing a donation. It would require me to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals, which I've already just talked to them sort of, how do you call it, simultaneously, just to keep things, moving, because it would be basically, we'd be dividing off what's basically a very small piece of land. So it requires a special permit from the ZBA. But by donating this to be conveyed for dam maintenance, and we could put culvert maintenance there too, and highway purposes, by saying this highway purposes language, that will make this new, what would be a new boundary, that becomes the new frontage of the property. And in some ways, it's good from a zoning perspective because it actually increases the linear footage of that frontage is actually increased a little bit. This is a non-conforming lot as it is, so it would require ZBA approval. Like I said, we still, of course, we still own the spillway over here and all that. And so it's, by no means are we still obviously have ownership of the dam, a big ownership stake. But we're just hoping to work with the town on this little piece here. And there is a mechanism to do that. It does require my lawyer to draw up some sort of a donation document. And it does, of course, require a town meeting vote. But I just wanted to run this by the select board. Of course, I wanted to discuss this with you and see if we could have your support to do this. And then I'll go to the ZBA for a hearing and, hopefully we can get on a town meeting article.
Ray, I've got one question what is your motivation for doing this?
Well, I'll say that for me, my motivation is that to not have this parcel here designated as a dam owner, because it would be one thing if the ownership status, it just simply because the presence of this culvert and all that drainage and everything is what's causing us to be dam owners on this side of the property, and we're trying to alleviate ourselves of having dam ownership status on that particular parcel. And then, I'm not speaking for the town, but I also felt it would just clarify your access to that. I think legally you have access to get into the culvert, but, down the line, I don't know, it might just be useful for you to have all your stuff in your possession as well, but.
Yeah. And, but you would still be a dam owner because of the parcel on the other
Yes.
side.
Yes, so our parcel on the other side would still be legally a dam owner, but this parcel here on this side would not. And just from a personal perspective, it's a mark on the property, right? Like for any, not just us, but any future owner, because it gets recorded as being a dam owner. And we feel it's a burden on a piece of property that, actually has real estate on it. So that's primarily why I'm asking if the town would support this.
Yeah, that makes it clearer. And I guess I would support that since you folks will remain owners on the other side and will be working with us into the future to maintain this pond.
Yes.
Gillian, do you have any thoughts?
Well, I was just going to ask so it would mean that the town would then be dam owners of that part of the dam?
Yeah, so the town is already a dam owner, and it's because on this side,
Right.
the culvert walls are part of the dam, and also the roadway, I guess, is considered the crest. The reason dam safety hasn't yet, from my understanding, is the reason dam safety hasn't. They had sent the town a certificate, but then it had the wrong deed note, and then they've just been doing a lot of research to get all the bounds right on the road. It requires them to do a bunch of deed research. So you're right, by grabbing this piece of land here, it would extend your ownership a bit. Really, the primary liability is really on the spillway is really what's holding the water back. But yes, you're already considered a dam owner, but yes, you would be picking up this piece, which is primarily, if you look at that and you look at when that area was rebuilt, that slope and everything is really kind of a consequence of all the bridge work that was done there when that bridge was rebuilt.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't think anybody had any understanding that, by having this do this, by having the culvert placed here, or the riprap here, that this impacts this property. But it does, so. According to the dam safety anyway, and they kind of have the final say.
Right.
And yeah, Gillian, just to add to that, when we had several people look at this, when we first started thinking about it, several people knowledgeable of dams and so forth said, well, the road is the dam. So
Mhm.
that's sort of simplifying it, but the fact is that the road is really an integral part of the dam, and the road, of course, the town owns the road. So
Right, right.
at that point, we said, okay, well, looks like we are at least part owners of this dam.
Right.
Yeah, I will say that legally, the way it works is that, you have 3 owners, you've got ownership split in 3, but usually what happens is multiple parties enter into an ownership agreement. And that's something we've been talking about doing with the select board. And of course, I'm still interested in doing that. We can certainly explore that anytime, an ownership agreement around just, we've been working, I think, partnering together pretty well, but yeah, this is just, like I said, I was a little dismayed when I brought it to dam safety, and because it was sort of nebulous, I wasn't sure what the status was, and they're just like, yep, it's, because that culvert's over there and the riprap associated with it, that makes you a dam owner over there too. So.
Right.
Okay. I mean, it makes sense to me, and I think the town certainly has responsibility and has been managing that side there, from my
Yeah.
understanding. Yeah.
I do mow the lawn at least once a year and trim back the vegetation, because that was one of the reasons we had an order in the first place, was because there was a bunch of trees on both sides that needed to be removed and other vegetation. So I have been doing that even in the town right away, just to keep everything under control.
Mhm.
I'm certainly happy to continue to do that and keep an eye on things, because we certainly don't want trees growing there. But yeah, so it will obviously extend. Basically, what would ended up happening is the town ownership would extend from just being here to just basically going like that. It doesn't change the road status or anything.
Mhm.
But
How does it affect the frontage for that lot?
so, right, what it does is it does change the frontage from being this straight line
Mhm.
to actually going from this point to this point to this point to this point. It actually increases the frontage of the lot. Now, that doesn't really matter from it. It doesn't allow us to do any more with the lot, because it's still a 1.3 acre lot, so it's not conforming. So it does make it it does make it a little more conforming in terms of frontage, because it's 169 feet, I think, and 200 feet now is what the legal frontage is. But but it also decreases the acreage slightly because of that slice. That's why it has to go to the ZBA for a special permit.
Okay, so the next steps are?
So the next step is I need to go to the ZBA and get a special permit. I've already been in touch with them. And my real estate lawyer has to draw up this donation sort of language. And we would need an article on the warrant about that. And I've asked my lawyer to be able to see if he can draft both those things pending the outcome of this meeting tonight. I think he's pretty knowledgeable of municipal stuff. So that, zoning stuff, so, and town meeting stuff. So I think he could take a stab at it. There is a checklist I've seen from KMP, like in terms of different, typical, title search, stuff like that. I'm willing to take on the town's legal costs for doing this as well. Like, the time for the lawyer to do the title search and whatever else I'm happy to do that as well. Because
Okay.
I don't feel like the town should, hopefully it's not very drawn out. The legal end of it should be pretty simple, but yeah, I'm willing to take that on.
That's great, Ray. So Gillian, are we ready to go ahead and approve this and send it off to the town meeting?
Yes, I'm in support of approving it and moving it on to the next steps in the process to move. to town
Okay,
meeting.
then I would move that we approve this plan and drop a warrant article and send it off to the town meeting.
And I second.
And all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right.
So we voted on that. And Ray, we do have a pretty tight timeline on the annual town meeting.
Mhm.
The
Yeah.
date of that is the 12th, and then June 12th. And then warrant articles are supposed to be submitted 35 days in advance.
Okay.
So that's a
So-
pretty tight timeline.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
Is it
There-
something that could happen at a special town meeting?
It could happen at a special town meeting. I think that dam safety has given me an extension here before I have to record this. So it might be nice if we could get it done sooner. Is the select board able to add a warrant article? You guys can add warrant articles up. Is there when's your limit for adding a warrant article? Like if my lawyer drafted up language that made sense to
So-
you guys.
This is Nancy here. From my point of view, the next meeting that the select board has is on May 26th. That's their last meeting before town meeting. So I feel like unless they're going to schedule another meeting to add something, that would be the night they would be signing the warrant.
Okay.
Nancy, you mean June 6th?
May 26th is your next
Oh,
meeting.
May 26th. Okay, sorry. I heard that as May 6th and I was
Oh,
confused.
sorry.
Okay, that's okay.
So would it be possible for me to have my lawyer take a stab at warrant language and send along? And if it makes it in time, then great. Otherwise, we try to get it on a special.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I would try to shoot for the annual. A property exchange like this is good to have it on the annual. We also don't have a special scheduled at the moment, or
Yeah.
even thinking about one. So
Yeah. I mean, I think an annual has a lot of people attend, and I think it's worth, having a good representation of town, see it and vote on it. So, okay, well, I'll see if he can do that. I'll give him a call tomorrow, and see what he recommends. Okay. Well, I really appreciate that. Thank you. I mean, I know it's helping me, and I do appreciate that. So, yeah. Okay.
Well, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks to you, Ray, for all your care of the dam and for helping the town out with that.
Of course, you've been good partners. So, thank you.
Very good. Thanks. Okay. It's now 7:20, and Nancy, do we have a few small things we can take care of before we get to high finance?
Sure. So I do have a drawing from Tom Chasen of the windows that he was proposing in Town Hall. It's fixed glass with no dividers at the top third, and the bottom third of the window does have them. I can leave that on the table for you to look at. But I believe I got a notification from Lori that we probably can't use Green Communities money to fund these, but maybe we could do a transfer from other money that we had appropriated for the solar panels that we're not going to be using. Is that something the Energy Committee would have to recommend, Lori, or?
So I can just give a little background. Nean did ask for Green Communities approval, and they said they rarely approve window projects, and they asked for energy savings numbers in order to even consider it. So I did check in with Jim, and he thought that there would be very little energy savings, and it probably wasn't even worth going through the exercise. And also because this money I'm talking about is from that rehab fund that I can't remember what the total is, but the Energy Committee has pulled out of it for the lights at the town hall, and we pulled out of it to try to do the solar project, which never happened, the town office's solar project. And it's sort of a fund that the Energy Committee has a little bit of say as to how we use it, but it requires a town meeting vote to designate what it's going to be used for. And I think we've already brought it up that this might be a good use for that money. So I think for that to work, that would be an article on the town meeting warrant is to, and I bet we have something that we could use as like the town lights one, Nancy would
Yeah,
probably.
I can use that as a template, sure.
Yeah, yeah. And we just need to get you, or no, you have the number,
Yep.
the amount. So, and I don't know, the one thing I wasn't sure of was, you know, we already took money out for the town hall lights, and I think we didn't spend it all. And then we took money out, of course, for the solar, and we didn't spend any of it. So I don't know if it makes any difference whether we take the town hall lights money and move it, you know, and then there's a third pot that is just called the rehab fund, which is, I don't even know how much. So we have 3 pots of money that we could take from. I don't know how the warrant would be if you wanted to move all of that money in a way to consolidate and make it cleaner.
I think it's up to you. We can divide it up any way that makes the most sense to the Energy Committee. So much from one fund, so much from the other fund, at your discretion. Or,
Okay,
or all from one account, you know, that's fine too. Whatever
right.
you think.
All right. So might as well write it up just like we did with the town hall lights for now, Nancy, and then I will I'll check in with the Energy Committee. The only other thought that my own preference might be to just get rid of that town hall lights account since we've done our project and it's just excess. So we might as well get that off the books.
Should that be returned to the rehab fund though?
Well, that's what I'm not really sure if you need to return it, like you need a vote to return it and then a vote to redesignate it. Or if you could just switch. I guess Nan is the only one who sort of figured all this out, and I can try to follow up with her.
Yeah, I think it would be easier to take the windows from the rehab fund, but I'm just saying, as long as we have those other things out there and we're not doing them, they'll just sit there forever. So it would be good to have them back into the rehab fund at some future point if we wanted to tap into it again.
Yeah, okay. That sounds good.
That's cleaner.
Yeah, and if you could run that by Nan and make sure that that works for her, then.
Okay,
we can
I will
figure
do that.
Yeah.
And then,
Very good.
oh,
So
and
then
sorry,
I
can
don't
I
know-
say one more thing, Nancy? Sorry. I did so in asking Jim about the energy savings, he sent me a long email that I actually just got right now before this meeting that is having a lot of recommendations about the actual windows. And it's too much for me to take in right now. So, but it might be something we want to look at. So I'll forward that to everybody and maybe we should find a way to get him the design that Tom Chason has also, just to make sure he's on, you know, he's in the loop about what we're planning.
Sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, Nancy, could we scan that drawing and send it out to Jim?
Yep,
Okay, thanks.
and I think that Tom also indicated the brand and the name of the windows, that if Jim wanted to look up the specifications, he could do that too.
That would be good if you can send that along also.
Okay. So we're on to 97 Wendell Depot Road. I don't know if anybody has gotten any further with the RFP or if we want to kick that one down the road again.
I haven't.
I looked at it a little bit. I mean, it looks actually like it could be a pretty easy transition. There's a lot of similarities. But I still have this idea hovering about whether or not we should, I don't know if we need to discuss more about if we worry about the high tension wires and having it be a residence. That's still making me a little concerned or uncertain.
Yeah, me too.
So that would mean a pretty big difference from the RFP. That's the current RFP.
Well, what would we say if we were concerned about that? We'd say no residents will be built here. This would just be used for agricultural purposes or something like that. And would we even want to use for agricultural purposes?
I'm not sure it would. I mean, I don't know the total piece of that property, but would it even have a benefit for someone to purchase for agricultural purposes?
Can you send me the Zoom information? Oh, you did? To the assessors?
It's mostly, most of that land is right under the power line. It's a small piece.
Right, and if they spray for weed control and stuff under the power lines,
Which they do often. Well, let's think about that one some more.
Okay.
Okay. So the town hall kitchen, we'll get to something that Lori asked for that's on the, later on, but apparently the kitchen failed at the inspection. And one of the things Lori said, it's the kitchen entrance, it's overgrown, or the exit. Is that what you would ask for?
Yes. Yeah.
And I don't, I think that would be a relatively easy fix to either hire somebody to pull up the weeds or cut back the brush from the exit. But the other one, they're still working on. Apparently, over the past year, Good Neighbors has moved some freezers or refrigerators, either additional ones, into the kitchen. And they were concerned, they didn't want them to be shared with people using the kitchen. It was, they were afraid of some kind of cross-contamination. And then also, now there's an issue, we have refrigerators and freezers out in the body of Town Hall. Somebody had made the suggestion to move them into the police station, and I told them, no, I didn't think that was a good idea.
Yeah.
I hope that was the right thing to say.
It was.
So anyway, Barbara Craddock is going to talk to Nancy Grattan and try and work out something with refrigerators and freezers and electrical issues. When you plug in a crock pot and a coffee maker, it blows fuses. And, I said, we don't want to get into some expensive electrical panel upgrade in there. We have to figure something out. So I think this discussion is to be continued, but I don't know if we can ask, and I see that Phil is on here, if the highway department can look at those shrubs and things, or if it's something we should just hire somebody to do.
I am here, Nancy, but I apologize. I wasn't listening to the first part of that, what you were talking about.
So this has to do with the town hall kitchen. Apparently outside the exit door, it's being overgrown with some shrubs and vines and weeds that need to be cut back so that people can leave the building safely.
Yes.
And we didn't know if that's something that the highway department might be able to look at and see if they could address.
How about I will look at it and get back to you. I think that it needs to be addressed if it's impeding safety immediately. It needs to be addressed immediately if it's impeding safety.
Well,
yeah.
the kitchen is not open right now, so it
Yeah.
would need to be addressed before they could reopen the kitchen.
Okay, I'll take a look. I'll look at it like tomorrow and get back to you with that.
it probably is a secondary egress for the town hall.
Yeah.
Although it's locked. I think, is there another secondary egress up on the stage?
I don't think so.
I don't think that's the egress for the town hall through the kitchen. But I haven't been in there for a while, so it's hard to remember how the exits work.
Exit.
I will, like I say, I'll take a look over there tomorrow and see what what needs to happen. If I can, I'll get back to you.
That'd be
Okay.
great, Phil. Thanks.
You, Phil?
Sure.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
So I think at 7:30, we can go on to fun budget talks.
Okay, Doug,
Right.
what's the good news?
Well, there isn't much. You've heard me for years warning that, we got to be sure there's enough lifeboats on the ship. Well, whatever metaphor you want to choose, the time has come. And, without cuts, our estimates of the rate based on the EQV that we've gotten from the assessors, thank you very much, because it's good to know what it's better to have it's better to have what might be the truth than to be guessing on something that isn't likely to be. So without any cuts, the rate would be estimated to be 25.15. That puts us into debt exclusion territory, where the only reason we're above that rate is because we have debt exclusions. My estimate of the debt exclusions for 2022 is about $160,000, which would make the maximum rate we could possibly have be 26.50 or so. One of the problems with being so close, the difference between 25.15 and 26.50, is that in the middle of the year, when the state comes out with the recap sheets and tells us what the EQV is and what our actual cap is, we sometimes get surprises. And that's not a good time to be modifying the budget in the middle of the fiscal year. And it also sets us up for the possibility that in the following year, we wouldn't be able to fund everything that we're asked for, period. So it's better to make some cuts now and start to be able to keep the budget in a realm where we still have some headroom if we need it. The one thing that we've probably seen the budget, sent them, at long. That's we'll talk about that a little bit when we. But the only thing that's not in that budget right now is the Swift River School window project payments, and Carolyn has not been able to determine from the school what that would be, or if it will be invoiced this year on what our debt actually is. But we assume when it happens, it's going to be something. I would have to guess something in the neighborhood of $20,000 to $30,000 a year, which is not extreme. I don't expect it to be more than that, but you never know. So that would be added to the budget definitely next year. So you could see where the rate is going. So we actually figured out two things that we propose to change. One is the highway budget, and the other is the capital contribution to Swift River School. From our thinking, and you've seen the budgets, I think people have had a chance to review them. You look at the account sheet, you see what all the budgets are for the various committees and departments. The only two things that we've come up with that don't fall in the category of essential is paving and capital projects at the school. There are a lot of, we understand that both of those things have consequences if you don't do them, and as far as the highway department goes, they haven't had an increase in their overall budget for many years. And the way I determined the proposed cut was to put a COLA on what I understood to be the wages component of their budget, and then deduct an amount from that seemed to be within a realm of possibility given what I've seen of their past budgets. And then it turned out that the information I had about their past budgets was not accurate, and that's not our fault, and it's not the highway department's fault. That's the fault of the accountant. And that's just where the blame lies for that. And that seems to be pretty much a fact now. But I do know that they have $35,000 planned to spend this year on paving, and we would like to propose to have a meeting with the finance committee, the select board, and the highway department to look at that before town meeting, so that we maybe have some kind of unified approach about it. I would like to propose that they consider either not doing any paving this year, or cut the amount of paving they do, and then accept that there won't be any paving at all in 2022,
or somehow mix those two together, where more limited paving this year, limited paving next year, something like that, so that we can keep the rate below $25 and have a hope of being able to pay everything we're supposed to pay next year. I think at this point, all of you have been included in the emails I've sent that explain the three factors of why we got this rate. That stagnant EQV, increased student population, not increased student budgets. I mean, school budgets, because those have not been out of control, but increased student populations at Mahar and Swift River. And what did I say? What said? Yeah, the EQV school budgets. No, I can't remember what the third one was. I've seen it up many times. What is it, Al? Help, I'm nervous. You're muted. Muted. You, Al, you're muted. Unmute. Can you unmute? Anyway, I could look in one of my emails and tell you. But the way we're hoping to plan this for the town meeting is to have two columns, right? And one would be the appropriation requests, and the other would be our recommendations. And those recommendations would include a cut to the highway department and a cut to the capital improvements to the school. And then would have the town meeting would be able to vote on it. And we would try to hope to help them understand the consequences of paying for those things this year or not paying for those things this year. And then they could also they'll see the numbers for the stabilization fund, and they'll see that the stabilization fund is we're subsidizing tax rate by $160,000, most of which came from free cash. And as a result, our stabilization fund will remain pretty much the same as it was last year, when it's not eroding it very much. I think it's in that budget, you'll see that spreadsheet, you'd see that it's down about $8,000. I've increased the finance committee hold, the reserve fund, to 20,000 from 15, which it's traditionally been. And the reason I'm doing that is so that we'd be more flexible about what we might have to do during the course of the year. That's really just like stabilization fund money. It's coming from the stabilization fund, and it's used just like the stabilization fund. So there's no additional cost to taxpayers for it. It's neutral. It just depends on whether we use it or not. So that's kind of where that is. And it's hard to do this, but if we got an increase from the schools next year, which they've given one every year, if we got one next year, we wouldn't be able to do it. It won't happen. So that's about that for that.
Can I ask a question or two?
Yeah.
The capital projects for the schools, is that just a generic number for what might ever come up, or is that for
No.
certain projects?
I believe what they're in the middle of projects to replace carpeting and urinals, if I remember correctly. There might be some other things. Are there things that need to happen, but they won't shut the school down because of them? Oh, yes, I know that the other thing we're worried about is there's a water problem there, and God knows what that'll cost.
So the other thought I just had is we have an idea that there's going to be federal stimulus money coming. I guess I don't know how much anybody knows about what it will fund or how quickly it will be coming.
Right.
But if there's ways to cut with the expectation that we might get the funding through, those means, then that might be a good way to do it.
It's certainly possible to, if we were to make these cuts to, say, to either one of those departments, to restore them at a later town meeting. In the case of the highway department, if they were, planning not to pay unless more money came along, and their regular budget went over, most of the overages that happen from highway departments is in snow and ice, and then we have to make it up the next year. That's why they let you go in deficit. We've been fortunate; we haven't had a deficit in snow and ice in 3 or 4 years. I don't even remember the last time we did. But the way that works is, if it happens, the town meeting has to vote to restore those deficits, at the next town meeting. So if we had a really bad winter next year and went over snow and ice by, like, say $50,000, which isn't unusual, that'd be bump up the tax rate another 50 cents. So there you go. Now you're at the cap, but if the highway department were to come with a crunch in the last month, based, just for regular expenses, the FinCom reserve is being a little higher would help, because we'd be able to put that money right in there without even having a town meeting vote. So that would be a backup.
Doug, I think that the town already has a certain amount of COVID-19 relief money in its bank account. Is that right, Nancy? We still have money in that account?
Yes, but the things you can spend it on are very narrow. They have to be COVID related. And there is some other pot of money coming, and I still am not entirely sure how we can spend that. But the original CARES Act money that I think the town had like $70,000 in, and we've maybe taken in 30,000 of that. There's just no more expenses that we can, we can't just put it towards the budget.
Right.
And they won't give it to us. And they'll take it back at the end of a certain period of time if we don't have directly related to COVID expenses.
Well,
It's important to remember that what will happen if we get more revenue, and in the recap, is that the tax rate will go down. And we have the cap to worry about, but we also have a lot of people complaining about their taxes, and justifiably so. So the other is true too. So if the town meeting would have the choice of taking a chance that more revenue would come in to prevent us from hitting the cap, that's one vote. But another vote would be if you can see that there's some non-essential services that we could get away with for a couple of years in the hopes of more revenue and a lower EQV, a higher EQV. That's a different kind of vote. And I don't know how people will see this, but they will have a choice, at least this way.
Doug,
I want to weigh in for a minute, if I may.
Of course.
That okay, Dan? You were
take
about
it
to
away.
speak. Okay. I'm having some issues. I guess I'm concerned, but a lot of the conversation that we've been having recently around the accountant's services, the accountant's capabilities, the highway budget, the management of this current year's budget, as opposed to what I'm going to just name as an unsustainable budget that we're managing. We're moving in a direction that it just feels like there's no way that we can continue in the patterns that we're going forward in the future. It just seems like we're going to hit a wall, and we're going to sell off a dump truck. We're going to fire one of the highway crew. I'm concerned. Let me finish it for a minute, Doug. Okay. I'm really concerned about the flow of conversation. I think the financial issues are one issue, a major issue, obviously, but the way this is being discussed, to me, is just as significant. It feels like we're going round and round and talking about a lot of different things, but the elephant in the room is that we have an unsustainable budget process, or in the future we can't keep up with where we're going. We can't keep up with the school expenses. We can't meld them with the highway expenses. It's just unsustainable. So it feels like in the last 2 weeks or so, we're doing this knee-jerk reaction. Let's eliminate the highway budget or cancel it from the current year. We already have a budget that was approved over a year ago, and you're discussing stop spending, don't use the budget that's already approved. And by the way, if there's any ripples in the budget next year, we're sunk, and I don't understand where we're going or why this is all a big surprise currently. It feels like we're all of a sudden discovering that we have a financial issue to deal with. So, and there's more details to that, but in general, I don't understand how we can sustain the direction we've been going, given the conversations in particular, but I don't understand how we can continue to go on in the direction we're going.
Mhm. That's true. That's why we're asking, anybody got any ideas?
Gillian?
I don't know if I have any ideas, but I know, for me, I had an interest in sitting down with the numbers that we're getting from the accountants and the numbers in our budgets to see, I mean, I have a sense that we have a better picture from the accountants now. I don't know if we've hit a point of, we're at a really good point that we feel good about the numbers in terms of these are accurate numbers. Because I keep having questions about that, and seeing also lines that are consistently not spent. So maybe we need to do something a little bit different about those, or I'm not understanding them correctly. But I, for one, would be interested in having just a numbers meeting where we sit down and really look closely at the numbers, and maybe even with the accountants there, and really be clear about what's being spent, what's not being spent, and where there's any wiggle room to help our budget. I don't know if people are interested in that, but
Mhm.
Well, how are we doing, Doug, in terms of the figures lining up from the various points of view?
Well, if you've seen the notes that I've sent back and forth to the accountant in the last couple of weeks, you would see that I think the primary problem is that they've not given us end of year reports. And when they said they were giving us an end of year report, it was really just the last warrant numbers given to us as an end of year report. So let me give you an example. Let's take the highway department. The highway department, in their numbers on their end of year report, had an excess of $57,000. Joy's numbers showed that same year as having a deficit of $5,000. There's two problems with that. One is that it's the example of how, without an end of year report, in fact, not a report at the end of the year, but a report for what the budgets were when they were all reconciled a couple of months later, right? Understand what I mean about the difference? It's like, one is, where is it on June 31st? The other is, after all the money's come in and all the money's been spent for fiscal 20 or fiscal 21, here's where we are. And that usually comes in October, right? Which is logical. We have not got a report like that for 3 years. So so I'm looking through it and I'm seeing there's discrepancies between the school budget and the spending. Differences between the highway budget, extremely so for the last few years, between what Joy says they spent and what the accountant says was balanced at the end of the year. But as they're saying, it's a timing issue. Well, maybe a timing issue, but we still don't know what the absolute number was. We only have Joy's information to go by, which is not that that's bad, but then that brings up a
Excuse me, Doug. What did you just say about Joy's information?
It's the only information we have.
But you said something about not the best what?
No, I didn't say it wasn't the best. I said that all I said was that's all we have.
So what is wrong with that? You have that information, and it turns out, from what I'm reading, that was accurate.
We don't know for sure that it's exactly accurate. We just know
Well,
that
it's closely. It seems like everyone's accounted for it pretty reasonably, and there's
No.
an accounting process that takes place. And yes, it was carried over to the next fiscal year, but there's nothing wrong with the numbers that Joy gave you.
I don't know that for sure because I'm not that I mistrust.
Well, let's assume it is true, Doug. Just for the moment. Assume it's true, okay?
Okay, that's fine. I am assuming it's true, actually. So assuming it's true, it brings up a couple of other problems with the accountant, right? Which is that when there's a deficit in a department, the money is supposed to be transferred from somewhere else, and we're supposed to know about that.
And
so
let me ask you, Doug, why don't you know that? Because according to Joy, she met with folks, she met with people from your committee. You were in South Carolina or somewhere, and supposedly it was a perfectly proper transaction that took place at the end of the year last year.
I know nothing.
I don't either, and I'm asking you, why don't you know what's going on with the budgets within the town itself, as opposed to what you suggest today, that Did we get a refund from FERCog because
Yeah.
things aren't getting delivered correctly?
Right.
I just don't understand how this is all melding together. When we've got every town office in Wendell has a budget, they have expenses, and they're spending them. And no one's hiding that. Why are
Well-
we having this big debate
Okay.
about whether it's the accountant's fault or it's like Joy's fault, for instance?
All right, let me say something about that. The problem is communication between the departments, and that comes into the IT issue. So the problem is, Joy has not had Microsoft Excel until recently. So she hasn't been able to send me information that I could discern. That's one problem. That's not her fault. Another is that the budget that the highway department has not given us a detailed budget of what they plan to spend ever. So,
And it's never been a crisis until the
I
last
know,
2 weeks,
I know.
you know?
I know. So when we have a crisis, what we discover is there's a communication problem that's contributing to the crisis because we don't have enough information. So I have counted on information from the accountant for years to be how I could base the departmental budgets for the subsequent years. That's a reasonable thing to do. Without that, I have to depend on departments to actually send to me at the beginning of the year an appropriation request that includes everything they want to spend and what they're spending it on, and an accounting from the previous year. No one does that. Now, I think it's about time we started doing that. In Wendell, we haven't done that. Nothing wrong with that. It's just a change in the way we need to do business.
Let me say, Doug, I do not want your job at all. And I appreciate all the time and effort. I really do. I understand. And for years, I thought you were a magician. You know, you're keeping it working. And I still feel that way at some level.
Well,
but you know, but it's like all of a sudden we're faced with a crisis that, how come we didn't know this was coming 6 months ago or a year ago? You know?
Come on. I've been saying it for 3 or 4 years. Can the people vouch for that?
Wait,
Yeah.
well, maybe you've been saying
We've
it,
been
Doug,
talking
but all
about
of a
it,
sudden
didn't
now
it?
you're saying
Yeah.
we shouldn't spend our current budget. I mean,
I'm not saying it's been okay. The highway department's doing a fantastic job. We've had enough money for them to do that. The paving, I understand that if they don't pave, it's wear and tear on the trucks. It's the roads that deteriorate. There's consequences to not paving. I'm not stupid, and I know that, and I talk to the highway people. I don't want to cut the highway budget. I just realized that it's the only thing in the budget. Take a look at it. That we could live without for a year.
I don't disagree that we could live without it for a year, Doug, but I just, again, I don't know, where are we going with this? Where's this budget heading? Is the school going to are we going to start laying off people? And we're just going to lose town government?
No, I can tell you what's going to happen, and it's not disaster. What's going to happen is property values in Wendell are going to go up. We're going to get a reval sometime along in the next year or two that's going to bring the tax rate down, and won't worry about the cap anymore. But everybody's taxes will go up over time because 1,000 people in a small town having to pay for all the services that it takes to keep a small town running today, with expenses increasing constantly and more state mandates and more state requirements for that police are trained and equipped to do the job right, that fire people have safe equipment and they're trained and they have the equipment they need to do their job right, and that schools and school teachers are trained and have the equipment to do their jobs right, and all these things and we have 60 miles of road. You know how many Leverett has? 37. So we have 60 miles of road. They have 37. We have 1,000 people. They've got 2,400. Taxes are going up.
Could I chime in here?
Mhm.
I think the needing to cut immediately to specific parts of the budget this year, I can see how that can come as a shock. But from an assessor's perspective, we have known this day is coming. It was just a matter of when. And we're doing everything we can to get our EQV up. And this year, when Doug asked for an estimate, it's always hard for us. It's early for us to be giving an accurate estimate. And because of how close we are to the limit, we gave an extremely conservative estimate so that we could base this conversation on the worst case scenario. RRG has already started working on abatements. Next, they're going to be doing building permits. Then they will be doing some more cyclical inspections, properties we know are undervalued and need to be seen as soon as possible. And then in the fall, they will start working on a town-wide reassessment for next fiscal year. So for FY23 is when that would hit the books, which is also our revaluation year. So I'm hopeful that we will see a sizable increase in the EQV that year, as well as looking at things like increasing our land value, which I know Leverett did a few years back and they saw a drop in their tax rate. Doesn't mean your bills are going to go down. I want people to really understand your tax bills are not going down. The values are going up and the tax rate goes down. If the budget stays the same, your bill stays the same. But that allows us to continue to raise and appropriate the money that we need to run the town. And that is an expensive job, and it keeps going up as services and supplies get more expensive. So at a certain point, there's going to have to be a change to the state law, which Doug has been talking about for years needing to happen. And we're not the only town. We may be one of the first towns to be hitting this situation, but there are other towns in similar scenarios.
Thank you, Anna.
Gillian?
So is it possible for us to ask for COG to come meet with us?
I would
And
hope. Yeah.
We can
explain
ask.
how to get to the point of where we have real numbers that we can count on?
Yep, I hope so. So you're looking across the board, your question, Gillian, is a good one. You know, which departments have excess, you know, and how much money is laying there that we don't spend? Only the accountant's going to be able to tell us that. The people going to department, you're just not going to find that. They don't know.
Well, that's, I mean, when I look at the sheets from the accountant and I see, you know, 0% being spent, you know, there's 100% left of that line and we're mid-May.
Yep.
You know, they may be little amounts, but if there's 10,000 here, 2,000 there, 5,000 here, like if we can freeze those accounts and say, okay, that's not getting spent, so we don't have to freeze something that is expected to be spent, you know, that's kind of what I'm thinking, but I don't have enough experience with this budget to really know. And I guess I don't trust yet that the numbers from the accountant are really what they are.
So Doug, should we ask for a meeting with the accountant?
Yeah, we should do that. Yeah.
Who should do that? Whose job is that?
I can
Nancy,
ask
can
her,
you
but who
invite the
would want
accountant
to
our next
attend it?
meeting?
Yeah, is that gonna be too late, though?
For this,
Or is
yeah,
this just something moving forward?
but this is something that we'd have to do after town meeting. It's not, there's no, I don't think there's any, as far as I know, from going line by line in our budget, there isn't anything in the budget that's being thrown away or we can put in an account that won't be spent. What we may have some accounts of money sitting in them that is just sitting in them and has been for some time. And those, we have to find those. It's not gonna be big bucks, but there's some there. I think there's some there.
So Doug, do you
Well,
have do you have a sense that that information that the accountants would provide differently or in more than they have been in the past? Do you have some idea that would change our budget crisis?
No, because it's not the cause of the budget crisis. All it is a cause of making it harder to figure out a budget. See, I mean, if I'd had better numbers from the highway department, not from you particularly, but even if we had better communication system, and that's on all of us, or if I had end of year reports that were accurate for the last 3 years, I would be able to make I and the rest of the FinCom would be able to make a better assessment of how accurate your budget was. And then we could have had that discussion. We don't. So it just would have made it easier, but it wouldn't make the situation any different. I still would challenge anybody to go through those account numbers and try to find a budget, an account department that can be cut. I have asked, last year I asked the library if you could cut, if there would be possible, if we needed it toward town meeting right at the end of the line, if you could cut $5,000 if you had to, and they pretty much said, really, it would be really hard to do. There isn't anything they're doing that isn't essential. One person suggested that maybe they could buy fewer library books. Yes, they could, but they're mandated to spend that money on library books based on a percentage of their budget in order to get the state aid. So it's you know what I mean? They probably don't need more library books right now, but it's tied into this bureaucratic component that mandates it be spent, and they tie that to the aid that you get from the state. So you kind of, if you didn't buy the books, they wouldn't give you the aid, and then you'd just be back to state neutral. You might as well buy a book.
So just so you know, Doug, there's no one in the highway department is opposed to not spending the money this year, if that will in fact, help with the crisis that no one's opposed to that.
Okay.
However, I am opposed. I want to just preface it with 13 years we've had a level budget.
Yeah.
We haven't asked for an increase. We haven't
I know
overspent. It's been very steady. It's been very dependable.
I know that.
And I will fight with that. I will argue with that we should
No.
change that number. You've already suggested we shouldn't spend our money, and you want to reduce our budget. We can't keep up the roads. We can't do maintenance. We can't do what we need to do if we can't have funds. And you know that. You've already talked about it. And so can the school say that, and so can the library say that. But I think, the town has to make a choice. If they don't care about maintaining the roads, or if they want to let them go, well, okay, then that's a choice they can make. But as for now, I'm going to argue for a sustained, stable budget. And not just this year.
Okay.
But with 13 years we've been running, why would we cut it? Let someone else cut it. Let the state figure out the problem with the educational funding. But you can't put it on town services to correct this. I don't think.
Your words to God's ears. I can't.
Bill, that's all we talk about really is we know that money should be coming our way from the state. It's a matter of getting not just officials, but we're trying to get the public energized to really getting involved with this, because it's not just Wendell, it's other towns as well. And there's a lot of money to come out of the schools, but the state really needs to start coming in with their share of it.
I understand. I hear you.
And that's, if we concentrate on that, we can solve a lot of all of it for now.
I think it's important to remember that this is a fight that needs to get fought with the state, and not one to fight amongst ourselves at town meeting. I think it's important we are between a rock and a hard place right now. And if we all pitch in and figure out ways that we can cut a little bit here, cut a little bit there, try to get the value up, do whatever we can do together, we're going to have more success and better experience working together as a team than if we try to fight it out at town meeting and say, don't cut mine, cut somewhere else. It's like at a certain point, we just have to figure out where we're going to cut services until we can, or simultaneously, I think we should be fighting this fight with the state to try to change the way this works.
Well, I'll go along with that, and we should fight with the state. I also want to support the highway department in the wonderful job they're doing for very little money. It's sort of a miracle that they're able to do this.
It is.
And a level funded budget for that many years is, well, for one thing, I don't think it's something that the schools can claim. And I'm wondering, Doug, that question, if you had to cut $5,000 from your budget, could you do it? Have the schools been asked that same question?
Well, they did cut $5,000 last week. And to us, so they actually got cut. They cut a little more. That's because the state gave them a little more money. That's what I think it was. That helped a little. And Mahar is considering a cut too, but with Mahar, our student population has gone from about 4.5 to 7 over the last 5 years, or something like that. And 1% of the Mahar budget's a huge, big bite of money because it's a $60 million budget. So when they cut $50,000, we get a change of $3,000. So it's even like we get a big increase when we go up a whole percent, but they cut a big chunk off, but then it just doesn't have a big impact on us. The biggest thing, you've heard me say this again and again, the biggest impact that could have on small town budgets here and everywhere else in the state would be a change in the way we subsidize or don't subsidize special education. Our rates are 25% of the kids. The whole overall state is 13 something. That's just outrageous that special education winds up on the burden of individual towns instead of being carried by the whole state. The collaboration of all the people in the Commonwealth to do it. It's a good investment. It saves money in the long run. It provides better quality citizens, if you want to think of it that way. It's a good thing to do. It's not being paid for in a way that helps anybody really do a good job. We do a good job at that and the highway department, despite not having money. The citizens of this town have been willing time and time again to vote for quality over lower expenses. And I'm sure they might do that again this year, but they would understand that if they do that, if they fund the full highway budget, there'll be a consequence maybe next year that'd be hard to swallow. But I'll say this, that there's a possibility that we could get together, Phil and I could put our heads together and find a way to maybe make some cuts this year from the paving budget, that maybe they could do the most essential things, take some of that, reduce some of the cuts for next year, and restore them if we see more money coming in from COVID money or anything else that improves our relationship to the cap. Because my investment is primarily to avoid the cap. That's where I sit. I'm able to pay my taxes. I don't like paying taxes. I hear people who can't pay their taxes, but I will fall most of the time on spending money where it's necessary, as opposed to keeping the rate down to help poorer people. So if someone wants to advocate for the people who have trouble paying taxes and advocate for lower quality services, in order to do that, I'm happy to hear it. And I think that voice needs to be heard. That's a good thing. But I have to look at the cap and say, we need to keep the quality we have as best we can.
Okay, well, we have spent a lot of time on this question. We do have a pretty big agenda.
Can I just say briefly what our IT issue is?
Okay.
Related. Okay, we've already seen an improvement in the ability of people to communicate since we just put a few versions of Microsoft Office software on some of the computers in the working office in town for the Board of Health and for the clerk for the board for the highway department and for all of the finance committee to be able to communicate better. We're able to pass the budget around freely and people can see it. It's not private business or any way being, it's good for everybody to see it and look at it and understand it and have questions. And the only way that we can do that is we're all looking at the same kind of software. And I know that Jillian has been looking at working with the grant to get more software and general computer IT improvements. And we are more than up for that. We really plea with the select board to make a plan for how to make a plan. That's what we'd like to see, is we'd like to see a plan to make a plan that really makes sense for the town in the long run. And people who know IT in the town beyond the IT committee are very adamant that we need to be moving in the direction that is more compatible with the rest of the world as opposed to anything else. That's what we got to say about that. And Al is.
I'd like to wait. I'd like to have a comment there, if I may, Doug.
Yeah.
I mentioned it before, but and I understand, collating data is an IT thing, but all of the town offices have budgets and they all have expense reports and they all have paperwork. So all the information that is missing as far as what different town offices are spending is available. It's there. It's hard to accumulate. It's hard to put it all in one place. It's hard to collate it. But I'm just, it's in the back of my mind, this conversation that's been going on for 2 weeks on the emails. I want to say that on FERCog's behalf, and I think, you know, the idea that you hit them today with they should refund us for services. You know, have we done everything we can? Have we accounted for ourselves as best we can instead of putting it on them? You know, IT is great, and being able to blame the accountants for our dilemma is easy, I guess. But I think we need to take a better look at how we're accounting between ourselves, and there's more to look at it than just, you know, pointing our fingers out and saying others could have done this better.
Well, I hope you do understand that they get all the warrants and all the invoices for everything we spend, and that it is their job to give us end of year reports. Therefore, total summaries of all the money that we spend all year, how much came in, how much went out, and where we are at the end of the fiscal year. And they have not done that for 3 years. And they do get that information because they get every expense. So yes, we can keep track of that too, but that's what we have accountants for, to consolidate it. We put it that way. If the highway department isn't telling the FinCom what they spent, a detailed budget of what they spent the year before, that's on the FinCom and the highway department. But the accountant at the end of the year should know what the end of the year number is, and they haven't done it.
Okay.
So there's two different things. One is, both are true. Both are true. We're not, but they have really screwed us. They've been getting $30,000 a year for that, you know.
I feel that's a little strong that they've screwed us, just to say it.
They've been paid for something they didn't do.
Gillian?
I do have to say too, that I think COVID has not helped our usual method of communicating, probably where we've met in person or stopped in somebody's office to ask a question. Like, I think it probably has hurt our ability to communicate in ways that we were used to doing.
Absolutely.
Hopefully, as we get back to being able to return to a little bit more normal, some of that can continue, in addition to finding other ways to be able to communicate with each other better in terms of numbers. That is a little easier.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think COVID has contributed to a lot of the difficulties, and if there were a way that the FinCom could figure out how to officially attribute that to COVID, we'd be able to spend some of that money somehow.
That's good. You know, maybe there is. You know, that's
There should be a way.
an angle.
So Doug, you'll set up a meeting with FERCog at some point?
Yes.
Like-
Yes. Well, probably let's wait till after town meeting, but you know, I don't think it makes a difference because we've got the numbers we got and we know they're good. I have questions that they aren't relevant to whether or not we're at 25 or 2486, you know, those we know.
The other thing I thought of too is, do we want to invite somebody like Comerford and Whips to one of our meetings?
Absolutely.
What was that, Gillian?
We
What was
wanna
that last thing you
invite
said?
Senator Comerford and Representative Whips to one of our meetings, so they can hear firsthand where we're at. I'll invite them.
It might be worth doing for the meeting with the accountant after the annual, you think?
And maybe, I mean, I could just do it personally, but I'm willing to send them a note to say, listen, this is where we're at, and this is the writing on the wall. And we look forward to having a conversation with you to help
Good.
you understand where our little small rural town is at.
I don't think that could hurt. And you could ask them for some dates, give them our schedule and see what they could, if there's a date they could make.
Okay.
Yep. Good idea. Phil,
Any
can you,
final thoughts on the financial picture before we go on to something else?
just an agreement that Phil and we'll talk soon and try to work out some kind of a plan. That'd be good?
I'm sorry, was that
Oh,
to me?
oh,
okay. Can you and I talk soon and work out some kind of a plan between the two? of you?
I'm never talking to you again, though.
That sounds like a good place to leave it.
Okay.
Word, friend. Don't worry about it.
Okay,
That, I'm sure.
okay, you two will get together and see if you can come up
We
with something. That'd be great. And Nancy, what are we up to here?
So we had some proposed ATM articles from Robbie that I believe you've all had a chance to look at.
Right, Robbie, you have anything to say about those?
Yes, I just wanted to put articles to make an elected municipal light board. They're dated for making the election next May, so it'll be another year before that goes into effect. I still think that municipal light board should be an elected board, and so I'm still pushing for that idea.
Okay, any thoughts from anyone else about these articles? Or is it two articles? It's two articles, I believe, right?
You know, one creates the elected board, and the other one basically gets rid of the old board.
Right,
And the elected board is created.
right.
So I don't know if
they
there's any
should be
issue.
combined for one article.
Lori?
I don't know if there's any issue because I'm on the MLP board for me to say anything, but
I think
I,
you are.
I guess mine is more of a process question. Since the town did vote on this same article last year, and we had the two opposing articles, and we tried to withdraw the non-elected one, but the conversation brought it all back. I'm sure everybody remembers this. But it was a very drawn-out conversation at town meeting that ultimately created the appointed board. So I guess my question is, I assume that we can put the same article on the town meeting warrant. I guess I'm just wondering if we want him, if the petition, I think there's usually a petition required if it's not the town or something like that.
Right.
I don't know if that's something, since the town did vote the opposite last year, if that would be something to consider.
So Lori, for annual town meeting, it only requires 10 signatures anyway.
Okay,
It's not a big hurdle.
yeah, yeah.
I know, I'm sure I could get 10 signatures in a couple of days if I had to do that. So
Okay.
there's no
I
real,
guess it was more of, is there anything saying you wouldn't necessarily want to put the same article on the town meeting warrant that was already, voted on the previous year?
I don't think there's any restriction that prevents you from putting an article on again.
Okay,
I think some of these articles come up again year after year after year. So that's okay. If you want to take into consideration that the town voted against it last year, that's sort of another question, but it doesn't prevent the town from reconsidering and coming up with a new answer to the same question.
okay,
I mean, I know I personally was a big advocate for the appointed board, but now that the MLP is up and running and the system is up and running and people seem to be pretty happy overall with everything, my own feeling is not to get in the way of whatever the MLP, what its next incarnation might be. So I'm okay with just putting these two articles on, if you folks are.
sure.
Yeah, I guess I don't have an opinion either way. If there's a right to have it on there, if done in the process that's needed to be. With the 10 signatures, sounds like, Nancy?
Well, actually, in the past, Gillian, if a member of a board or a committee comes forward with a warrant article to the select board, oftentimes we will waive the petition
Gotcha.
requirement for the petition if it's coming from an already existing board or committee in the town. We don't necessarily always force people to get the signatures, so I would recommend we do it in this case, suspend the requirement.
Okay, but this isn't coming from the board.
No. It's coming from me personally.
Right.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, I guess I feel a little different about that. I mean, if it's coming from somebody personally or if it's coming from
Yeah,
a
you're
board.
right. You're right.
Yeah, I think the select board has often waived it from just individuals as well, just because the threshold is so low.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've often put non-petitioned articles about any number of subjects on the town meeting warrant.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and especially since we're running into a time crunch if we're going with the 31 days before the annual to get articles on. So
Okay.
without objection, I think we can add these articles.
I agree.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robbie.
Okay, so the next item, we got an email from Union 28 that said last year Wendell didn't want extra people at town meetings, so they told Jen, Bruce, and Kelly not to attend. Do you know how the town feels this year? Do you want them there?
Are they vaccinated? I imagine we can't ask that question. It seems like a different year. I mean, Board of Health is probably the one to weigh in, but
I have a feeling this year that people may have some questions about how it's been for the school this past year and, you know, upcoming, you know, budget, you know, if there ends up being some questions or reductions or, you know, in the budget for the school, that there may be people who would like to ask some questions of school personnel. So
Yeah,
maybe not all three of them, but maybe they designate somebody to attend.
right. Yeah, I think that would be good. I mean, I think that we've gotten the process for the meeting more under control, and we know more about it. I don't think having one or two extra people come would be a problem. What do you think, Lori?
yeah, I think it seems fine. Again, maybe Board of Health would want to have the final say, but if they think that there's any reason to limit the numbers, but
Okay, can someone check with Board of Health on that?
Yeah, I'll check with her. I think that the fact it's outside, again, will make it a little easier
Yeah.
for them to make that call.
I know.
and just, oh, sorry. I was just gonna say along those lines, and I think this was brought up last time. Is there already a process or a plan in place to make sure the town meeting is gonna get set up and be put together? As it always been? Because last year we had a committee and I don't know if that committee is still active or is needed or.
They aren't.
Well, I did talk to Katie, who's peeking in on the screen here in the corner. And I told her about the changes that we made, well, basically to agreeing to have it outside and pretty much according to the same format as last year. And Katie seemed comfortable about that. And do we need a committee, Katie, or?
I'm not sure. You know, the special, which of course was smaller, went pretty smoothly without a committee. I'll be talking to Barbara and to Anna Weatherby and just seeing what we need. And we will need people to help with setup.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the basic plan of how we're going to operate was decided by that first committee, and we can just follow that plan again.
Yeah, good. And if you want to make up a list of, or come up with a number of volunteers that you need, we can sign people up.
Okay,
I will volunteer to move chairs.
thank you.
I
Me
will
too.
too.
Well, we know from the Board of Health, if we need to have as many spaces between people and things like that. I know that was sort of we had to have lines and things last time. Do you think we'll need that again?
I don't know. Yeah, it will depend on, obviously, I'll have to talk with Barbara, it depends on what the governor and CDC are saying, basically.
Yeah. Okay. Will you check with Barbara on all that, Katie?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is Al down with sound?
I haven't talked to him yet, but I hope somebody.
You gonna do sound, Al? Yep.
Got
Okay.
just had some new mic cords and a new mic come in today.
All right.
Great.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Little bit of upgrade.
Is Anna there? Are you listening?
Yes, I'm listening.
I know you and I think it had a quick question. You'd asked me if there was a planning committee, but you and Katie have been in touch.
We have not yet, but
Okay.
she is on my top of my list for Saturday.
Okay.
We have to swear each other in anyway, so.
Let us know what's needed.
I will do that. Thank you very much. That's why I came tonight, to find out what the plan was for the town meeting.
Thanks for coming. Okay, I think we're good on that, Nancy.
Okay, so the next thing, it's not anything you have to take any action on. I just wanted to make sure you knew that we got a letter from DEP that PFAS has been found in the Swift River School water supply. They do need to reply to this letter, and I talked to the school, and Larry Ramsdell, their water operator, is going to handle what they need to do at this point. I can't tell you what that is, but at least they are on top of it, so we don't incur the wrath of the DEP.
Right.
Yeah, good.
That's good.
I don't think we have anything under old business unless anybody has anything for those topics. Okay, so we have to come up with a photo for the annual report, which the last several years has been a picture of our Citizen of the Year. It was Juanita, I believe, this year. Anybody have any ins with her to get a picture sent this way?
I'd be happy to check with her.
Okay. And then I talked to Dan, and I have mentioned it to the other select board members about transitioning perhaps to in-person select board meetings. We could certainly try meeting in the meeting room, which is a little larger for more social distancing. Obviously, if we have a late meeting, I see it's already dark outside, so that probably wouldn't work
Yeah.
for going outside. But if it were, a shorter meeting, we could certainly sit outside. I just didn't know how people felt about that.
Mosquitoes.
Yeah.
I think
Well,
I'd rather meet inside.
yeah. How do you folks feel about meeting in person inside, like either in the meeting room or even the town hall where there's more room?
I'm fine meeting in the town office meeting room with masks.
Okay.
That's fine with me. I think if we're expecting a larger meeting, we might need to make, with a lot of people in attendance, we might need to make other plans. But if it's the typical size meeting, I think it'll be curious to see. I wonder if when we're done with Zoom, if our meeting attendance will actually be smaller.
I think I'm okay with it also. I might even, I guess, I don't know how it would work in terms of knowing whether people are vaccinated or not. And how that would make it whether we would or would not have to wear masks. But I guess it probably makes more sense just to wear masks. make it easier.
Yeah, I think we
Yeah.
can ask.
Okay, so it sounds like everybody's ready to see each other again.
So do we want to start that at the next meeting?
It's good for me if it's okay with the rest.
Sure.
Okay, we'll meet
Very
then
good.
6 feet apart and wearing masks in the town office meeting room. See how it
All
goes.
right. Okay. So we already spoke about the next item, the town hall kitchen entrance. So the highway department, they tried to hire the replacement for Alan Frost and didn't get any appropriate response. That was for a full CDL license, so the hoisters licenses, and to be the second in command highway superintendent. So they've regrouped and they've re-advertised. Now they're going to look for somebody that's going to be basically a new position. It's a laborer / non-CDL driver. So we didn't have any pay rate set up for that. So I spoke with Phil and Carolyn. So what we've advertised it at is the, I believe it's the part-time truck driver rate, which was $15.47. And then after the 90-day probationary period, it would go up $2 an hour. But we would need approval of that from the select board for Carolyn.
Carolyn, would you like us to approve that? Are you there? Are you listening? Can you hear us? You are muted. Okay, but should we just move ahead and approve that, Nancy, do you think?
Yeah, and then I can just give her copies of the minutes at a later date. And I may have to tweak those numbers when the minutes come out because I don't have the ad in front of me, but it was something that we discussed and everybody was on the same page. And I found that if I try to minimize my Zoom meeting, I lose you, so I don't want to do that either.
Okay.
Dan, just so you know, the thinking from our end, the thinking is that, you know, we're not having any success hiring someone to replace Al, that we could hire someone at the lower level, much lower level, and hopefully gets it, because that person can still drive, the pickup truck can still drive the small dump truck with a plow on it. So it could really help the crew out, and the crew really needs the help. Operating at 2 is tenuous at best.
Right.
So we think that this may be a solution to get someone in that's energetic and willing to learn and help support the crew.
Is
Right.
it possible, Phil, that they could move up to that next position if they were interested in getting their CDL?
Yeah, sure. That's the goal, is that, you know, have someone that's really wants to work into the job and advance. That'd be great.
That's
Sounds like a
good.
good plan.
Okay,
That's
well, in
all
that
I
case,
have.
I would move that we approve that that new pay rate as Nancy finally determines it for the new highway worker.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
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 That's it for me, Dan.
Okay, thank you, Nancy.
Oh, and just Nancy, we're signing appointment slips tomorrow.
Yeah, those Lori had asked me to fill out. Sarah Wilson to the Town Hall Kitchen Committee, and there was a glitch in the election, so Sylvia Weatherby needs to be reappointed to the Highway, or I'm sorry, to the Cemetery Commission.
And
Okay.
that, is that for just for a year and then she'll be on the ballot for
Right.
next- Yeah.
Right.
The one other thing too is we may need to follow up on to get the mosquito at our next meeting. We might need to vote on the mosquito plan again, just to make sure we've done it properly.
Right, when the plan is completed.
Right, and that's due, I think, the 28th, and our meeting's on the 26th.
Yes, they gave us an extension, the 28th, yeah.
Yep.
I had
Go ahead, Lori.
just another separate thing I had wanted to bring up was when mowing is going to start on the common, Because
It's
last
starting
year,
May 22nd, Lori, I called him.
all right, good.
And also again on June 5th, which is a week before town meeting, so.
All right, excellent.
But
Thank
weather
you.
permitting, and that gives them some leeway of a week in case the weather is bad.
Okay, great.
Yeah, thanks for setting that up.
Now this is bringing back memories to some of my very first meetings with all of you. Because I was remembering too about the question about mowing over the septic system or the leach field.
Right.
When does that happen? Is it only like twice a year?
I think that's what we were planning.
Yeah.
I actually don't remember if we changed that. Do you remember, Nancy?
I don't remember either. I'd have to look at minutes.
Maybe the people we hired know.
Yeah.
I hope somebody does.
It's probably in our minutes from last May.
Because I know with the pollinators wanted it to be less, but everybody else didn't want to risk the, the infrastructure or whatever. So I didn't know if we ended up doing it at a normal frequency.
Yeah, I kind of think that we do because I remember the price of mowing went up because of it, but I'll have to go back and look.
Yeah, okay. It's testing my memory too. I think we went to 1 or 2 times per year, but we should check it.
And the other thing too, are we looking at applications soon for Nancy's position?
Yeah, I was hoping at the next meeting we could set up some interviews for June. We've gotten 3 applications in and probably 3 or 4 more people asking for the job description.
Oh,
I have talked to a few people, mostly experienced town administrators, and they're a little scared off by the salary. I don't think we're going to get an experienced town administrator at this price, but that's okay. I'm just putting it out there.
so Nancy, you say we have 3 applications altogether?
So far, yep.
Okay. Well, that's good. It's a start. Doug?
I'd like to be at any interviews that happen for that particular job, since I'd have to work with them in some kind of quasi-formal way, I guess. I don't know what you call it.
You will be invited.
Thank you.
And that reminds me that I like how we did, I guess it was the custodian interviews, where we had a set of interview questions that we made sure we asked the same for every candidate. And
Yep.
Whoever wants to be at the interview, we take turns asking questions. So I don't know if now is too early to start coming up with our questions. If people have things
No,
they
it's
want.
never too early. Please submit
Never
them.
too early.
Sure.
So anyone who has ideas,
Yeah.
give them to Nancy and we can start collecting those.
Okay. Good idea.
And if you have any, Nancy, that you think we should be asking.
Right, Nancy should probably be doing some asking.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We don't want to scare anybody now. Come on.
No. We're not.
Okay, Gillian, did you have any further items?
I don't think so.
And Lori?
Nope, I'm okay.
I think it's good for me too. Doug?
I just want to say, I hope I was not too over the top there. I'm pretty stressed about this, but I certainly am intending to keep the communications lines open as best I can. If there's anything that's done that's been a help, I think it's been to expose their weaknesses. They're primarily communication, and interchange of what do you call it? Exchange of information between departments in more detail, so that we didn't. Well, it's not that we don't have to count on. We should be able to count on the accountants. That's one of the things the accountants do for us. I think that the finance committee was very aware of, and so is Nancy, but maybe the rest of other people don't understand, is they're our go-to for questions about how to manage the budget, or what is appropriate, or when we have to do transfers, and how they need to be done and what can be carried over and what can't be carried over. We don't know the answers to those questions, and the people in the departments don't necessarily know them either. So that's been absent as well, and it's made it that much more difficult. It's one of the reasons I think they owe us a refund. It's because they have not been available as the consultants that they're supposed to be. And I understand Phil's, frustration for sure, and he and I we'll figure out something that feels good. I'm glad to hear that they are willing to accept pretty much anything we need, and they've been doing that. So, and I have a lot of faith in them. So I think they've been really good about the way that we bought equipment, and they've been open and upfront about that, and wound up getting really good equipment. And we've been able to head off a lot of criticism about that. People who don't like it that we buy so many things and that we borrow money for it. But I think we've got really good people looking into those things, and I think everything they buy is needed and they use them well. So we'll work on that. But the overall problem, I think, comes down to that communication issue. And I hope then, if when I guess I will become a financial coordinator, that's what I'm going to try to do, because it's not what the finance committee was supposed to do. And that's kind of, we're just supposed to put together the budget with the money numbers you give us. That's all we're supposed to do. So
become special investigators. Right, Doug?
Yeah, not exactly what we wanted to do in the first place yet, or what we were supposed to be doing, but it fell to us, just like a lot of personnel issues.
Doug, do you know if everybody who wanted Excel now has it?
I don't, and I just pass it on, and I'm able to provide that for anybody who needs it and wants it. And, I would encourage anybody who can use it and would like to be able to view the files that we produce and all over the community and of the town administration, that community, that they can have it.
Nancy, is it possible to send out an email to the town office folks just to say if you'd like Excel? Have they gotten that?
I think we have done that. Yeah, we have sent this out, but I can try asking again. I've talked to people in person as well. I mean, we did upgrade the tax collector, the assessors, highway, FinCom. My computer already had it. Board of Health, I think she was happy to upgrade their computer.
I'm wondering if the library director needs it.
Well, I know that we have people working in the library that won't work with it, that have given a lot of time to the library, and I don't know how they would feel about that. We can ask. Maybe they're happy with what they have. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I think they should at least be offered.
Yep, that's my thinking. I agree.
That's all that I have.
Okay. That's all I have. Thanks to everybody for coming. And we want to have some times for signing tomorrow, folks.
I'll be there before 9.
I can do 10 if that's okay with you, Lori.
Sure, I'll aim for after that.
Okay.
11.
All right.
And
Very
won't it be great
good.
if the next, you can actually sign at the meeting and you don't have to come in on Thursday
That's
anymore.
right.
That would be neat. Looking forward to it.
All right, we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Night.
Yeah.